Okay, welcome into the Patriots Beat podcast hosted by Evan Lazar. I'm John Zanis here to tee up Evan for some of the grisly discoveries of this week's film review from the Patriots 49ers debacle in Foxborough on Sunday. And Tuesday is usually the day, Evan, where you have poured through the coach's film and you've gotten to see in a bit more detail what we all saw on Sunday. And really, it wasn't that much more revealing than the game itself was, but it was as bad as everybody was saying, and as you were saying right after the game.
Well, I mean, the offense right now is completely inept at passing the football. They can still run the ball, which is nice, but they're currently 30th in EPA per dropback, 27th in Football Outsiders DVOA metric as a pass offense. I mean, just basically any statistic you want to use. They have the most interceptions in the league. They have the fewest passes of 20-plus yards. I can keep going and going. Like they're literally in the bottom 5 category in any production stat on the offensive side of the ball through the air. And I think when you see that, it's not just one thing, but I think a main reason why is that the timing, the anticipation, the knowing where his answers are into the coverage for Cam Newton right now is an utter mess. And when you don't have receivers that are creating tons and tons of separation or winning one-on-one battles all over the place, you got to hit the easy ones. You got to hit the layups. And right now that they're not producing on those types of plays.
So, and again, a lot of this stuff was pointed out, and a lot of the stuff you could see just on the regular game broadcast and in some replays, receivers flashing open and Newton not hitting them, being a little late on some throws, and just lack of recognition. Newton keeps saying after the games, he feels like he's pressing. Now, how much here do you think is Newton looking for a bigger play than what's available? Because a lot of what you have in the Patriots offense is take what's there. If you have the 4 or 5 yard gain, sometimes take it, and you got to recognize it and take it quick, or else it's going to be gone. There were some plays where you would see 2 and 3 players open in a position where they could possibly even make some yards after the catch, and Newton's just either just looking at them or holding onto the ball and not looking at them at all, and with his eyes downfield. How much of that did you see, where he's just opting not to go with the thing that's right in front of him?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a little bit of that, of just taking what the defense gives you and just checking the ball down or being willing to check the ball down. But I think more worrisome than that, I would say, is a lack of aggressiveness down the field. He's kind of locking on right now to his first read in the progression. He's never really getting off that first read, and he's staring it down. And then by the time he gets to second read or the check down option in a progression, everything is already on top of each other at that point, because it's been 3 seconds, 3.1 seconds. His average time to throw on Sunday was 3.13 seconds. I mean, I can't remember any time that Tom Brady's average time to throw was over 2.8 or 2.85 seconds, let alone all the way over 3 like that. And it's not because Newton was scrambling around and making plays like he's Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes. It's because he's not reading the field quickly enough. And I think in this offense, and really any offense, I think it's a little bit over-exaggerated that the Patriots offense is so predicated on timing. All offenses are predicated on timing.
It's open, then it's not open.
Right.
I mean, that's it,
And then the issue is that some quarterbacks, like a Russell Wilson or a Patrick Mahomes, can then create what we would call outside of structure, right? So they don't see the initial guy come open, or there's no play initially as the part of the design of the route pattern. And then what happens is once the scramble drill happens, those types of players are really good at creating plays down the field in scramble drill mode. And Cam isn't really that type of scrambler or that type of mobile quarterback. So really, again, what it comes down to is nobody's sitting here saying, why isn't Cam making big time throws down the field? Why doesn't he have these, why isn't he throwing darts? Why isn't he throwing dimes down the field to Damiere Byrd and N'Keal Harry? Nobody's expecting him to do that, folks. People are expecting him to make the layups. That's the ones that we were asking him to make is, get through a progression and hit a check down receiver, or that throw to Damiere Byrd on that over route coming across very early on in the game on Sunday. He just sat there and he patted the ball and he patted the ball. And then eventually, once he started winding up, there was a defender at his feet putting pressure on him, and the ball sailed over Damiere Byrd's head because of the pressure. Now, they got a flag for roughing the passer, but you still look at the process from the quarterback is not good on that particular play. And then finally, I think what really sums it all up is that the Patriots finally in week 7 got back to running some Haas-C juke, which is like their favorite go-to concept. It's day one install type
Twitter
of
was
stuff.
clamoring for it.
Right.
During
It's
the
been
week.
20 years of Haas-C juke here in New England, or Haas-Y juke, as some people might hear it when it's a Y instead of Edelman, when it was like Aaron Hernandez running the juke route instead of Wes Welker or Julian Edelman. So regardless, they ran that play 3 times, 0 completions, 1 interception on Haas to Edelman late in the game. And that type of optionality system, Cam is not reading the field fast enough. He's just not getting to his points fast enough. I actually didn't mind the fact that he came off Harry on that one, that screenshot that's kind of circled around where Harry comes open on the post. Because it was quarters, I could understand why he worked the one-on-one matchup with Edelman isolated on the linebacker. But on the second time with Haas, with the interception to Edelman, he's reading single high. He knows it's single high, so he works the seam. He gets stuck on the seam, and instead of going seam to hitch, which is what you're supposed to do, he goes seam to juke, and he throws an interception. So I just think that he doesn't really understand right now fully. He's not comfortable with what they're asking him to run. So to me, what it comes down to is that he needs to sit down with Josh McDaniels and Jed Fish and even Bill Belichick, and they need to say, okay, Cam, give us the 10 passing concepts in our playbook that you're comfortable with running, that you know the progression read, you understand where the ball should go based off the coverage, and you feel good about it. You practiced it well, and then you can play it well in the game. Give us the 5 to 10 concepts, and they're just going to have to stick to that grouping, because right now, all the different types of option routes, all the different types of things that they want to run in the berth that they want to use in their playbook, it's overwhelming him at this point, I think.
Well, I want to get to McDaniels and the coaching in a minute, but the other thing we've talked about with Newton is mechanics and whether or not there's regression. And again, during the Denver game, there obviously was, and we attributed a lot of that to not having a week of practice. And Newton's a person who needs that practice and those reps to make sure he doesn't lapse back into bad habits. But it seemed like a lot of those were there again on Sunday. So this is another thing we have to contend with. And again, I think people have to get used to just the fact of Newton, which is even at his best, he's not an exceedingly accurate passer. So he has to have perfect mechanics just to get to 60% completions pretty much. Or maybe in a Patriots system, if he's reading things better, that number can go up because you've got more passes that you can hit on with more frequency. But how troubling is that he has slid back into that so quickly after seemingly having gotten past it early in the year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the mechanical stuff is it's like any sort of sport with repetition involved, a baseball swing, a golf swing, a free throw shooter, anything like that. It's all about repetition. It's doing it the same over and over and over again. And what I think ended up happening there, this is the one aspect of it to me that you can sort of blame on him contracting the coronavirus. And that is what happened there. He kind of lost that momentum, right? All off season, all training camp, all preseason practices, all that kind of stuff. Jed Fish, McDaniels, they're drilling it into him, step 1 foot front of the other, shoulders level, don't have the backwards tilt, make sure you're stepping towards your target and following through and transitioning your weight and not locking your front leg out and all that type of stuff. That's just these little mechanical things that allow a quarterback to generate velocity and accuracy down the field. And Cam, unfortunately, has gone off the rails with that, I think, because he's lost that continuous repetition day in and day out. So they can build that back up, I think. And I think they will at some point get back to where he was in weeks 1 and 2, where he was throwing with much better mechanics. And you could see the hard work paying off for him. Unfortunately, he got unlucky, and then the whole coronavirus thing really threw him off the rails. And that's where we're at with that. Way too often throwing with his feet parallel to the line of scrimmage. That's all arm, right? He's just trying to throw the ball with his arm at that point. He's not generating anything from his lower body or from his core, and that's why the ball is getting thrown short, or the ball placement is off, or whatever the case may be on any particular throw. So he's never been a mechanically sound thrower. That's why usually in Carolina there's a lot of high volume in terms of deep passes going on. So, hey, he's probably not going to hit 60% of his deep passes, but if he hits 30% and we're throwing a bunch of them, then that's a couple of big plays a game. So who cares at that point? So maybe that's what the Patriots need to do. But I just really feel like he was never a consistent thrower. You can't expect him to be a consistent thrower, but he's got to make the easy ones.
Well, I mean, look, and again, this is the dilemma with the Patriots is, yeah, it absolutely would make sense to chuck a few balls downfield, see if you can win some 50-50 balls, draw a penalty, get somebody open. You hit a lower percentage of those, it's going to be better for your offense because they've not generated any splash plays. But the question is, to whom do you throw those balls? And right now, I don't know who that is. You got, his one deep ball attempt last game was to Jacoby Myers and his 4.78 40 down the middle of the field. So again, you don't really have a lot of capable people there. That before we put a pin in Newton, because again, he's drawn a lot of the criticism, justifiably so. He puts it on himself. He himself says he's fighting for a job. We'll see whether that's actually the case. But just my take, I think he is overwhelmed by whatever it is he's being asked to do. And again, this will lead into the discussion about more to Cam. Whatever it is, I think he's lost himself completely here, where the position that he's played his entire life now seems like something that he doesn't understand. And it's not just the throws he's not making and the recognition. He's missing opportunities to run for easy first downs with half the field completely open and a defender not within 15, 20 yards. He's not taking what the defense gives him at all. And right now, I think he's really in his own head.